we'll have this discussion.
Discussion? What discussion?
This is a discussion.
Combustion.
Coming to you from Denver, Colorado. This is Discussion Combustion Podcast with your hosts, Kevin Batstone and Arthur Raw.
And then, long story short, we ended up getting tied up with Shawn, and he's been in our wheelhouse since the day he's been on our show, just constantly pumping good energy, sending good vibes constantly. And then he sent us you, which is exciting because a Shawn Antonio referral comes at a high value.
That's good to hear. I've known Shawn for about 25 years. And I'll tell you that in that 25 years, Shawn has been Shawn. Like, there has not been a change. And he's Shawn, on and off camera all the time. He's got that energy and it's really great. Like, I count him as one of my best friends and one of the people that I just call when I need a boost to the energy and the good vibes. And he's always there. So I'm really grateful that he brought me here to you guys, and really grateful that I know him as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a tricky life, this tightrope life that we all walk on. And it's good to just have that optimism, and that's, and I'm saying this for everybody. Like, if you have the capability to do that and just kind of put that positive energy out there, maybe, just if somebody, you could tell it, you want to compliment something, you could be genuine about it, be nice. Like, it goes a long way. It truly does. And, thank goodness for people like that, bringing that energy into the world. Cause, modern day with all the stuff that we deal with, cancel culture and all the negativity out there, and just, there's a lot of things that people complain about. So it's good it's like a breath of fresh air to have the other.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to have friends like that too, because I can call him up when I'm just in a bad mood and and I know he's the person that's going to get me and hear me, but not get enrolled in it. So I can call him up and be like, Shawn, I just need to vent. I need to clear. I'm getting rid of it, and just say whatever I have to say. Just like, yeah, I got it. I hear you. Don't be an asshole. Go have a great day. And you're like, okay, I got a great day now. Thank you. I get over myself. It just puts it back in perspective,
Absolutely. Yeah. To piggyback off that, the importance of having somebody that, you have in your contact list that is going to answer and will spend the time necessary to sit down and talk about what's going on. That is worth its weight in gold, in my opinion. Family and friends make you the richest man or woman or whoever. I really feel like the people you surround yourself with, the people you can count on, are the most important that in your life, And Shawn Antonio quickly became that. I mean, he made it clear. He's like, you guys can't get rid of me. You're in our wheelhouse now. And he texts us like every Friday,
Yeah, he intimidated me a little bit at first with the friendship, because he was very much so like, yo, you don't understand. You're in my wheelhouse now. And
there's no getting out.
Yeah. And what that means is like something that's great, because like I said, there's so much, things that we can complain about. And that's one thing that I've been trying to work on and be more conscious of, is to complain less, like out loud. Like, we're all going to have things that bother us, of course, but like, if I could just not say it out loud and like burden whoever with that, if I could just dissolve it first. So that's one thing I've been trying to work on.
Yeah, I think it's important. And that's why I like that kind of friend, because I'm very specific on who I will ever talk about the negative stuff to. I'm very careful, because I don't want them to get like on my side. I want them to get me and just be like, all right, that's not you. That's not you. Give it up. So he's one of those people that I can get it out without spreading it through the world, and he's not going to get drugged down by it. So it's important, I think, to have that, because we've all been through a crazy couple of years. Mm-hmm. It has been a crazy couple of years for everybody. And I don't think that we give ourselves enough credit, a lot of us, for the fact that the last 2 years have been so utterly and completely abnormal. And we wake up in the morning like, okay, I got this. Like, we're going to make it normal. We're going to get through. And it's like, no, it just hasn't been. It hasn't been. And the more we can just embrace that, then the more we can be present and be with what is. Adele, did you guys see she put out a message? She had to postpone her Vegas shows, and she put out a message, and it was really she was very emotional, this video message saying like, we really tried to pull it off, but everybody's out with COVID. We're delaying. We just couldn't help it. And I had just had to push a schedule on a project that I was doing because people were out with COVID, because everyone was just sick. And I was really kind of beating myself up. And then when Adele was like, nope, can't do it, I was like, all right, if Adele's like going to take a breather and get it right, then we all kind of have to give ourselves that space to just be where we are in this day and age,
I feel like I'm getting close to that point. My day job is in logistics and transportation for like, full truckload freight. And it's volatile. And I'm seeing the industry and how, worker shortages are stressing every commodity, food, clothes, computer chips. And yeah, I mean, so it's good to acknowledge that, because otherwise you're just taking the stress on all the time without ever processing it. So I do feel like it's important to be able to be aware of the things that are happening around that can stress you out or that are creating tension in society, and kind of understand where you sit with it, right? Like kind of come to your own peace. And that way you're not overly focused on it, because with that kind of stuff, it's good to acknowledge it and think about it and know what you think about it, but you don't want to obsess about it. Like there's still a beautiful life around you.
Yeah.
Silly little things you could laugh about and have fun about, it's not all to be made serious, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just finding that balance with acknowledging what's so and not getting obsessed with your interpretation of what it is,
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that COVID's taught all of us is, the blessing in disguise, so to speak, is like being able to adapt on the fly. We've had to get, used to doing Zoom meetings from the house, readjusting the way we communicate and strategize. And the fact that things can get canceled rapidly, right? So you're looking forward to something, guess what? Now it's not happening. So I think that one thing we've all learned is how to adapt and overcome quickly, and unexpectedly, right? You've had stuff planned out for months, weeks, days, whatever the case may be. COVID throws a wrench in the works every minute, every hour of every day. So I guess that's one of the positives I look at here is we still have the availability to sit down, do Zooms from wherever, we have people in studio at times. So I also try to remain fortunate in the fact that we're still able to make things work and move forward. Because I'm the same way. It's like I was getting pissed off, man, I can't go to shows. I can't go see sporting events, but let's focus on the things I can do. Right.
Yeah. And I think that we had, how, people that are in academia they'll take breaks. Like they get a semester off to go write their book and reflect. And I feel like we all got to do that for at least the first year for sure.
So bad.
I
mean, I need to do that. I was thinking right now I need to do that, but yeah, we did get to dial it back a little bit when the pandemic first hit,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a mom. And so I was solo parenting through the pandemic. So I had my kids home and navigating the Zoom meetings and just kind of all of that while I had actually just launched my business about a month before everything shut down. And I remember standing in my kitchen when I heard my son and his friends were in the living room, and I heard one of them say, yeah, school's canceled for 3 weeks. And I was like, no, school can't be canceled.
I can't have this.
Know that I have a schedule that I have to keep.
And what grade are they in?
They are in, so my son is now in 7th and my daughter is in 3rd.
Okay.
So they're
so they're rambunctious.
Getting there. Yeah. Yeah. They're amazing. So it was really an interesting, I also was a military spouse. So I've spent a lot of their life just with them, like just me and them, because their dad was deployed when my daughter turned 7, he'd been around for about 2 years of her life. So it was a lot of just time being with my kids. So my kids really are kind of my best friends, and they've taught me so much, and they still teach me so much, and they just crack me up. So it was interesting to be, I feel like a lot of moms probably relate during COVID. There was no other adults in my children's life. And so the idea of having to be enough for them all the time, which is impossible, was just so kind of taxing and drew me to new levels of, finding out what I needed to take care of in myself so that I could be who I wanted to be for them, It was a lot.
I mean, that kind of, you almost segued into a question I was just about to ask, which is, for a mom that's starting a business, dealing with the pandemic, being an entrepreneur, all this a parent at the same time, like, what would you say are some of the critical lessons that you've learned, like, to build strength? Because we've all been dealing with some stuff like that. Maybe people are still looking for those critical lessons.
I think that what I really learned last year was to kind of step into the ritual and the habit. So I'm very results driven, and I stay focused on a goal and I work hard to get there. And I felt like last year was full of a lot of changes anyway. Like I moved across the country with the kids and, working in the business, and it was just a lot of new stuff. And I had to step into habit. Like, let me just get into the habits, and I don't have to worry about the results right now because the results weren't showing up. And so it was just about showing up every day with my full self and letting go of the results. I mean, all of that in business, but I think the easiest example for me was I put on weight during COVID. I made it about the first 7 months, and then it all just like popped on in about 3 months.
I mean, I'm guilty of that too. I got stretch marks during COVID because it happened so fast.
We all got a little COVID belly going
Yeah.
on. I had to switch from the slim fit to the regular fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, no, I made it till October. And then it just, bam, I was like, all right. My body was like, nope, you had your reserve. And so then I kind of stepped back when things got back more to normal and I could go back to the gym, and like I had a little more help with the kids. I was doing what I'd done before, but it just wasn't coming back off. And I was like, okay, I hit my mid 40s during COVID too. Like maybe that's the problem, but it just wasn't behaving in the way that it had in the past. So I had to go, okay, you know what? I'm going to not worry about what things look like or what the scale does. I'm going to show up every day, and I'm going to keep improving my habits. So I think it's so much just about self-care. And I read something the other day, and I'm completely blanking. Brianna Weist, I think. Anyway, the quote basically said, it was the whole thing she wrote about self-care. And it said, self-care is not what we think it is. It's not about bubble baths and chocolate cake and the things that we do to escape from life. Self-care is the hard work of showing up every day and doing the hard work of balancing your checkbook and going to the gym and doing all the things that you don't want to do to build a life that you don't need to escape from with chocolate cake and bubble baths, and a life that you realize that chocolate cake and bubble baths are a reward and something to enjoy and a way to enjoy life, not a way to escape from it. So I think the work that I've been doing with myself over the last year has been, showing up every morning and meditating and going to the gym, even if I'm not seeing the results that I thought that I wanted to see, and just being committed to the rhythm that I've developed. And I did that all last year, and this year I'm seeing the results, but I had to let go of them to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes a hard commitment. Like you said, I mean, it's tough. I sometimes struggle with like committing to, okay, this is the game plan, right? I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this, that, the other. I'm good for like 1 month challenges. I feel like I need to broaden that to a year challenge, maybe yield some results from that. But it's good to hold yourself accountable, right? At the end of the day, how many boxes did I check today? Did I get done what I needed to do? And let's repeat, rinse and repeat. And I always tell our listeners, just getting out of bed and checking that one box is a great start. Let's get the day moving here.
And it's a lot about grace for yourself and forgiveness. And that's hard, just to be like, no, it's okay that I didn't make it to the gym yesterday. I'm going today. I'm starting fresh today. It's that constant rebirth in every moment of we really tend as human beings to take the past and put it in the future and think that our future is going to look like our past has. But we can just say, no, I get to create from this moment. And we still have our mental rhythms that tend to continue to do that. But the more that you can just call stop and recreate from this moment, the more, that you can have that grace and have that success and have that freedom to create.
So true.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not, the daily thing, the habits, right? That really strikes a chord with me because, and the beginning process, I liked how you explained that, how, you were working hard on it, but no results were being shown. Like, I feel like that's crucial to make sure that that's echoed a little bit, because it's very discouraging when you're trying to change and you want to do things differently and you're unable to see results. I mean, we're all so programmed with our phones to get immediate dopamine and all this stuff. And so you have to grind through that though. And that's so true. And I look at my life, not like I'm working all the time or I'm busy. Like I look at it like I'm just going to be productive today. Like that's one thing I want to do every single day. And maybe being productive is taking that one relaxing day, but every single day is the main thing. You have to do it every single day. And I believe that until we pass, like you do it every single day. And that's how you become successful in something, is truly dedicating yourself to it, to where it's just part of who you are. It's not like a habit or a mentality. It's like you're developing a different person and you're committing to that. Yeah.
My trainer, I was saying, I want to commit to showing up to the gym for every 2 weeks. And he said, yeah, there's nothing wrong with ruthless consistency. And I was like, oh, ruthless consistency. So I've adopted that. That's one of my things this year that I've created is ruthless consistency, just showing up no matter what, just being there.
I love it. Hashtag ruthless consistency.
Yes.
And say that 10 times fast.
Yeah.
Ruthless consistency. Ruthless consistency. It's hard. That's hard to say. No, but I do like that because, you know, like you got to be a warrior a little bit. Like, you know, you want to be empathetic and love thy neighbor and yada, yada. But to a certain extent, like you got to battle in this life for almost everything and people will take advantage of you. And so, you know, that ruthless, consistent show up. I like that. It has good energy to it.
And then you get to be whoever you want. So how do you feel it? You said people.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Okay. I was going to say like people taking advantage of you. What's your reaction to that when you feel like that's happened? I'm just curious.
I feel like you're really trying to do this right now is kind of my first thing, like, or deceiving, you know, I could see deceiving me as trying to take advantage of me too, you know, because I've deceived a lot of people in the past and I'm not proud of that. I've changed. I'm more honest now. And I only lied about specific things because I was an addict. But like nowadays, like if people try to deceive me or just are ingenuine, like I kind of take that as trying to pull one on me. And I don't know. With flight or fight, I would more likely fight in a situation. It doesn't mean physically. It could just be, you know, fighting for my self-respect. And if you're going to disrespect me like that, then, you know, I'm not going to jump down somebody's neck, but I'll definitely use choice words to, you know, like, come on, like, I'm not having that. I mean, Kevin and I sometimes like, I mean, we've known each other 12 years. So like we have to get at it occasionally. Right.
Well, yeah, that's just good old friendly banter.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can get a little heated because we're business partners or whatever.
Well,
but
and that's a light example.
That is a light example. But I think, so to answer your question, which was how do I respond to if someone tries to take advantage of me? Was that the question?
Yeah.
You know, I think I approach it a couple different ways. I think the first thing I look at is I'm being tested, right? So acknowledging what's happening. If I see that I'm being taken advantage of, because a lot of times we don't notice that, right? People are good. They're good talkers. They become your pals. Maybe you don't see it happening, right? So the test in itself takes time. Now, once I start to see the writing on the wall, I'm the type of person that's very black and white, no shades of gray, so to speak. You know, there's some exceptions there, but how do I respond to being taken advantage of? Not well. Not well. I take it very personal. I think it's very disrespectful, and I'll make that known to the individual. And I set boundaries very quick. You know, this is unacceptable behavior. If I've done something for you and you know, give an inch, take a mile kind of thing, you know, I'm all well and good with helping people out, but getting taken advantage of is something that I think a lot of people get sucked into because we all naturally want to be good, caring individuals and human beings. And I think there's a lot of beauty to that, but that also does weigh that risk of being taken advantage of. So how do you respond to it?
So what do you
think? Me, I cut it off.
So what do you think? Like the majority of people, and I agree with that, but the majority of people that do take advantage of you and can really do it are more than likely not strangers, right? Like,
yeah, good point.
So
could be clients, could be.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not business, business, obviously. I mean, we've both been in sales a long time. You have done sales, I'm sure, of forms of sorts. I mean, everybody sells, but yeah, I mean, let's try not to take advantage of people, I guess. How about you? How do you react?
Yeah, I want to hear the juice.
I know, as soon as I ask you that, I was like, oh, they're going to ask me. And then
it's coming back.
You know, and I can't think of like a whole lot of times. I think that I'm very, like I look for the best in people. So if somebody's taking advantage of me, I will set boundaries. Like if it's really like, you know, obvious, I'm like, no, like I just kind of back out of the situation. But I think I give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not. And what I found when I do that with people is often they get confused and just, then they're nice. Like not always, you know, I've had people I remember a guy taking like money from me, but like 20 years ago when I was waiting tables and like could barely pay my rent. And some guy like took change that wasn't his. And it was a lot of change. And I remember just feeling so hurt and surprised that somebody would do that. Yeah, I don't know. I think now it's just like mostly my kids that take advantage of me. Then I count to 5 and take their iPad away, you know?
That's funny. I mean, with that whole thing, like, you got to be willing to draw the lines where you need to, and y- people come and go in your life, and that's sometimes you got to just, like cut it out. Like,
Yeah.
it's so important. The company that you keep, right? Like what you're feeding your brain on a daily basis. I am so fascinated with, because it's not, you've done life coaching as well.
Yeah, I've done some coaching as well.
Okay. Yeah. So you're like, you know, the mind games, and that's just a wonderful game to play, because it's truly like we have choices of what we want to think about, how we're going to let things affect us.
Mhm.
And we're all susceptible to reacting. And that's what makes it fun, because you got to catch yourself and like constantly redirect yourself. And
Yeah.
like that mind space of doing that on a daily basis, because I'll lose my patience and I'll get frustrated and want to bang my desk. And it's just like, Arthur, like, what's that going to accomplish? Like, having a little burst, like,
It's
Yeah.
something I still struggle with daily. Something that Shawn and I talk about actually is just getting a grip on a little bit, because I have a short fuse sometimes. I
Mhm.
get impatient. When I'm focused and really, just looking to move the ball forward, and something prohibits that, or somebody comes in and disrespects me, going back to the taking advantage piece, I get very fired up about it. And
Yeah.
so that's one of the things that I think Shawn's done good at, kind of, coaching me a little bit on, well, how are we going to redirect that energy? Because it's coming from somewhere else, of course.
Yeah.
And it's a constant battle, and it all starts with just being aware of it, I feel like.
Yeah. And I think it is that time. So I was thinking, as you were talking, I remembered a time that it was about 5 years ago that somebody really did take advantage of me and really hurt me a lot and caused major changes in my life. And I talked to her and I said, you know what? I'm going to forgive you. I don't forgive you right now, but I'm going to get there.
Okay.
And I trust myself enough to know that I was going to get there. But I needed to be angry for a while. And I think that sometimes if we try to forgive too early or when we're not ready, then it's just disingenuous. So it's finding that balance of let me go through the honesty of my feelings. And then I'm going to get there, because I know who I am and I know what I'm committed to, and I don't want to carry this. And then it was earlier this year, and I'd kind of worked through a lot of just letting go and forgiving. And I was just down to the last little bit of resentment that I was just kind of keeping with me, just for, just wasn't quite done with it. And then somebody said, forgiveness is just this. It's just, I'm resenting you and I'm not going to do that anymore. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. That was my last one. I was like, okay, I'm just not going to do that anymore. And then I was complete. And as soon as I let go of that last little bit, then all of a sudden I saw all the areas in my life that had been holding me back from, where I'd been holding on little resentments in areas that reminded me of that I was completely blind to. And I was like, I let myself free, but I couldn't have done that 4 years ago when it happened. I had to go through what I had to go through. So I think there's a lot of self-grace and surrender. Surrender is another one of my words this year that I'm really stepping into. And Shawn helped me create that. I was like, what's the opposite of resistance? And we've talked about it for a long time, for oh, surrender. And surrender is a hard one, because I like to be in charge.
Well, what was it? Relentless consistency?
Relentless consistency.
Yeah.
Surrender, and then being alive. Those are my three.
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
Being fully alive.
I love it. And I agree with what you're saying too. Get your power words on, figure out what those mean to you, and start feeding your brain with that epic energy. Because, and I do agree, it takes time to process things. It takes time to work through things. And one thing I want to mention again, and we talk about this frequently on our podcast, is, giving yourself time to be in your thoughts. And the only way you're going to do that is if you put down your phones and put down the remote controls and actually get to know yourself, because if you're not spending any time up here and you're constantly looking at the black mirror and stuff, then you're not processing your life. You're just constantly getting fed information. And then we hear about depression going up, alcoholism going up, all these things going up. And I feel like that's a huge contributor. People don't know who they are. They don't know themselves, and they are upset because of that, but they can't pinpoint it. And so I agree with a lot of things you're saying there. Like, give yourself time to process things and figure it out and let go of it too, because we do have a choice. We can focus on something that bothers us or something that builds us. And, you know, focusing all your time on negative energy, just, it's counterproductive, honestly.
Yeah.
As simple as it gets.
And it's bringing it back to the humanity. And like, you know, we spend so much time with technology that we forget sometimes that human beings are human beings, and technology is a tool that human beings created. You know, we are pretty defenseless creatures if just left to our own. But one of the things that, I mean, the reason that human beings are dominant on the planet is because we've created tools, and we can't get lost in the tools. You know, we can't lose our humanity inside of the tools that we've created. And what, you know, what my company does a lot of is we work with technology, with aviation technologies in particular, but it's crazy to me that I work in kind of technology because it's so far away from where I started, but it's so important to remind people that we're human beings in the middle of all that. Like, we're human beings using tools. It's just like the little, you know, the little stone axes that we had. It's no different. Like, those were cool tools. And so is the F-35. Like, it's the same thing. So it's about coming back constantly to that humanity, to that story, to that connection to other people, whether you're dealing in technology or whether you're dealing in entertainment or whether you're just staring at your phone. Just remember that it's about humanity, and we can't forget that.
Yep, it's a good thing to keep at the forefront, you know, because it's easy to get consumed in the day-to-day, right? Your phone's going off, we got emails to answer, you know, the screen pulls you in. It is tough to find time to hone in on, you know, who am I, what makes me happy, what's going on in my life, right? We're being pulled in a lot of different directions, and it's tough. Even for me, it's tough to find time to just get away. You know, I don't have kids, so I can't use that excuse. You know, I probably have more time than a lot of people, but I still feel like I'm just constantly floored all the time, right? But, you know, that's that American mindset, right? Hustle, 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 you know, take a little time, do some Netflix here and there. But, you know, all of it comes in the checks and balance. You know, what works for me might not work for Arthur or for anybody else. It's about honing in on what works for you, I feel like, and being really conscious and aware of that, because I feel like we can get pulled into being workaholics, being not workaholics, right? It's hard to find that common ground, I guess.
I think it's coming back to, am I being fully alive right now? Is this celebration of life, or is this an escape from life?
Look, I'll tell you. I mean, sorry if I cut off a show, but look, going on these walks, like I do little walks, like at least 5 miles a week. Like, it's a little way for me to help out. But if I listen to music or without music, just moving my body, not looking at a screen, seeing the trees, you know, and noticing. I try to notice the day. I'm looking for the lovely moments. That's one big difference, is if you're actively looking for it, then you're likely going to see it. And it's like so many great moments I've had just by myself on these little walks, and it's like 20 minutes and it's like changing my day and my energy. So that's living, you know, the little things living is the little things.
And it's being present. You know, I had a great teacher, Sal Romeo, years ago, was an acting teacher that I had 20 years ago. And he said something to me that stuck with me so much. He said, in the worst day, there are always 3 beautiful moments. It can be the worst day of your life, but there are 3 beautiful moments in that day. And I went through like a really hard time, I was saying, like about 5 years ago. And during that period of time, I posted on Facebook every day, just 3 beautiful moments, just to keep me present to life is still good. Life is beautiful. And I was so moved by them. And I was sharing my daughter had a really rough day yesterday. And it's so funny. She's like, I know you say there's always 3 beautiful moments. I was like, oh, I guess I repeat myself a lot. She's like, there aren't 3 beautiful moments in today. And I was like, well, let's just talk about it. Let's take a look. Like, I remember you laughing with your friend earlier. Was that a beautiful moment? And she's like, okay, there was 1 beautiful moment. I was going to be mad at me for telling this story. I'm sorry. But she really bad. Well, I shouldn't talk about my daughter on the air without her permission. But
it was a friend.
What? A friend.
You were helping a friend get through, you know. Yeah. But it's true. There's always a bunch of little things that can make the day right. I mean, and that's it's always the little things that can be the most beautiful, though, it seems like.
Yeah. And it's just that presence of like, oh, and when we got to at the end of that was, she was like, yeah, there were great moments in my day today. And it was great to kind of see that shift. And I think that the other thing that I noticed as I was really like that period of time where I went through posting them is that I was much more aware and present. So and I'll do that a lot of times as I fall asleep at night. Like, what are 3 beautiful moments from today? And then I remember the next day, I'm more aware of looking for them and noticing them when they happen. So it's just sort of a presence exercise.
I like it. Yeah. I think that's something that I could practice too, because I get fired up most of the time, traffic, whatever. The best part of my day is being here usually. So that's definitely one of the beautiful moments. Waking up, I feel like, is another beautiful moment. But I like that, finding 3 beautiful moments. That could be a game changer for a lot of people, because we've all been there. Oh, it's a shitty day. Everything's gone wrong. I just want to drink beer or whatever, drink whiskey and make it go away. But if we can reflect on, there's 3, you're absolutely right. There's 3 things that every day, at least.
Yeah.
There's like 100, and sometimes it would just be like, I loved seeing the light flow in through the window. Like the way that it was hitting the floor was beautiful.
Yeah. The way the light's catching the air in this household. And those are some of the best moments. You have the humidifier going, and, is the golden hour, and you're kind of relaxing. You got comfy clothes on. Like, that sounds nice to me. That's a beautiful moment for sure.
That is a beautiful moment. I'll tell you what else is a beautiful moment is this podcast right now. And I'm excited that you joined us. And let's dive into what you do a little bit. I mean, let's see what's going on. Let's peel back the layers. What have you been working on?
This year, I've been working on 2 projects that I have loved. So my company is called Amelia Media, and we work with technology. We work with storytelling for technology, basically. So we make it accessible. We take the stories that I was saying, like, human beings use tools, and that's what we do. And it's just kind of dialing it down from technology being confusing and difficult to, like, how do we tell the story in a way that it's going to connect you with other people that want to do business with you, or just with having the world know more about sort of the human story, which is tied up in technology. I'm working on 2 documentary projects, or one of them we just wrapped up right now, and one of them is still in progress. And they're both really, one of them is on the history of naval aviation test and development. And
that's an interesting subject.
Oh, it's so cool. It's so cool because it really is. So Pax River, Maryland is where the Navy does all of its aviation test and development. And it was World War II, basically. They needed a base to put all this together. And they picked Pax River, Maryland, because it was one of the most secluded spots, surrounded by water. There was like 1 road in and 1 road out. And the same families, there was a boat that came over from Europe in the 1600s. And you can look at like the people that walked off that boat and the phone book from 1940 in Pax River, and it's the same names. Like, it's those families stayed there for 300 years on the same land. And then the Navy came in and they needed a place for the base. So they kind of like nailed notices on people's doors, and they had 30 days to get off this land that their family had been on for 300 years. And the community really recovered from that and flourished from that. But it was a difficult thing that had to happen at that time. But it was World War II. So it was right after Pearl Harbor, and everybody was very, aware of the need to test these airplanes. So it went from being farming land and fishing land to having some of the, the most high tech of the time airplanes, and astronauts were out of there in a few years. And it became this huge center for naval test and aviation. But I think what's so interesting about it is the fact that it's a human story, that we went from, the 1940s with these airplanes that I don't want to say that they were held together with like chewing gum and duct tape. I say that sometimes that's not true. Of course, they were good airplanes, but but we've gone from these airplanes that they were just kind of like learning how to use in military aviation to the F-35. And this happened from generation to generation to generation, just passing on.
What are we on, like the 6th generation of fighters? Is that what it is?
Oh, I don't even know.
Is it? I think it's the 5th or the 6th, I think.
Are there generations? I don't know. There's been a lot of them. But
yeah,
the F-35 is the first one that is really, kind of multi-mission. I had somebody say to me that the F-35 is like a blank page. It's just designed to be like what you can come in and write whatever mission.
Because that's like a Harrier where it can take off vertically from anywhere, right? Okay.
Yeah, some of them can. Yeah. The ones for the Marine Corps, there's different services. They all kind of have different capabilities. Different
variants of the F-35. Yeah, I mean, I'm super interested in all like the war tech and history of how battles were won and technology. All that stuff is because it is interesting, and it makes you kind of think about your own life too, to a certain extent, because 100 years goes by pretty quick in history, but if I make it to 100 years, I'm very fortunate, so it kind of helps you see your life through different eyes, I suppose. I don't know. That's a side note though. That's a side note.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It hasn't been that long. I think about that with like cameras too and film. Like it's just been a little over 100 years that we could record, and that's a whole other conversation, how that changed everything in the way that we look at the world. But being my degree is in film, and I love film and I love visual storytelling. So being able to work on this piece has been extraordinary. So that's one of them. And we're doing a 30-minute piece for the base, but then we're working on making it a commercial project that hopefully we can get out on the streaming networks and have kind of a 5-part series about the development of the fighters and the community and how it all.
Oh, I would totally watch that.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. And then the other one that we just wrapped up that I also would like to bring into another project is we did a project in women in aviation that we did for the Patuxent River Naval Air Museum. And I had the designer that we work with come in, and she did the whole exhibit, and it's so amazing. And we got to interview a bunch of women that at different times did different things in aviation over, the last 50 years.
What was one of your most interesting ones, do you think?
I would say Carrie Blazek is one of my favorites. That's all of them. This was my favorite project I've ever worked on in my life. I'll tell you that right now. And there's so much sort of serendipity in having it come around. But Carrie Blazek she was an aircraft mechanic, and she was the first woman that came to Pax River as an aircraft. I don't know if she was the first one, but she was the first one in her squadron at the time. So she said, I showed up and I was the only woman there for 2 years. And like, did they give me a hard time? Yeah, they gave me a hard time. And it was so interesting to hear her tell the stories, a lot of which were a little too rough for me to put in the finished piece. But it was so interesting to hear like all of the things that she went through and just the overt discrimination that she had to deal with and the way that she made her decisions. She told us one story about somebody just being really overtly discriminatory to her loudly in a whole room full of people. And my director of photography said, did you file something? Like, did you file some kind of report? And she goes, they asked me if I wanted to. She said, but at that time, that wouldn't have done a lot of good. She's like, what I did instead, she said, no, just, let it go. But what she did instead, she said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to schedule some training for the whole squadron on, how not to discriminate and treat people equality or whatever. And she said that was a lot more effective. She's like, in part because we actually got some education out, and in part because then the rest of the group who had to sit through this training, like really handled the issue on their own. Like, they didn't want to sit through the training again. But she also talked about, she's like, how were you successful back then? Like, we showed up and we put our heads down and we did our job. And she said, Ginger Rogers did everything Fred Astaire did, but she did it backwards and in heels. Like, that's what we did. We just showed up and we worked hard, and that made a difference for all of the people that came after us. And then I got to talk to the people that came after her, and just hearing them talk about, how much less they had to deal with and how it changed over the years and how grateful they were for the people that really paved the path for them. But that was
epic. That is epic. I mean, because it shows how capable and able an individual can be, and like how big of an impact we can make as an individual.
Yeah. And just by showing up. And then, I got to talk to Colleen Nevius, who was the first female test pilot. And this was actually a cool story. Like, I wanted Colleen for the documentary on the history of naval aviation test and development. And the museum was letting us film interviews there. And I couldn't find her. Like, I just hadn't been able to track her down. And I had read some about the person we were interviewing that day. And I realized that he had taken pictures at her wedding. He was a photographer for the base. He'd taken pictures at her wedding. So I walked into Snorra, who's my director of photography. And I said, you know what? Randy, who we're interviewing, took pictures at Colleen Nevius's wedding. Like, I bet we can connect with her. And I had a meeting back with the museum director, who said she wanted to talk to me about another project. And I walked back there and I sat down, and she said, the project I want to talk to you about is this women in aviation thing. And I was like, no way, because I was just talking about Colleen Nevius. Like, she's the first female test pilot. She's like, it's her project. Like, she's the one that kind of spearheaded it. So it was that just walking into the museum and having that conversation that made it feel so much like it was exactly where I was supposed to be. And I actually used to write letters to Ronald Reagan, and I never thought about this later, because it didn't come like full circle until that moment for me. But I used to write letters to Ronald Reagan insisting that women be allowed in combat. Now, I have no desire myself to go into combat. Like, I'm really grateful to not have to do that. But as a child growing up, kind of Reagan era, it was so clear to me what that, there was so much discrimination inherent in that, and I could see it clearly. And I feel like that was one of the areas that girls growing up, when I grew up, one of the last areas we really could see the blatant discrimination. And it happened under the guise of chivalry a lot, like, are we the kind of nation that wants to send women home in body bags? Do we want to send our daughters off to war? Do we want to bring our daughters home in body bags? And Colleen Nevius told me a story. She said, I didn't really know if my dad supported my career in the military, but he wrote a letter to the Washington Post and basically said, no, we don't want to bring our daughters home in body bags, but it's no better than bringing our sons home in body bags.
True.
And so for me, just having like been in my little young focus on that, and then coming full circle to be able to deal with some of the women that faced it at that time, Colleen was Reagan era. And I'm not saying Reagan because it was that whole era. It was all of the presidents that came before 1996, when the law was finally lifted. I think it was 96, the combat exclusion law for women.
I remember that, coming out and things changing. Like, I was old enough to remember that for sure.
Yeah.
I was born in 87. So I was like, what? Like 9, if it was in 96?
Yeah, somewhere around there for sure. Mid-90s sounds correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's you can see the passion. I mean, so starting young, you had an opinion about it. Now you get to kind of work in a documentary sense, get to hear some of the stories that tie to it, kind of bringing it full circle. It's interesting.
Yeah, it made me feel like kind of the whole journey through kind of my crazy years trying to maintain a career as a military spouse and everything. Like, it led me to that place where I was like, oh, they say that that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing when you can just feel it. And before that moment in that project, I had never really gotten there. I did a lot of things I loved and I was really passionate about. And I got to start 2 nonprofits that I worked with for years. And I just got to do a lot of really amazing things, but none of them ever felt like I'd come home until I got to work on that. And that kind of brought full circle, like the technology and everything else that I was working on, that it just felt like, oh, this whole journey has brought me here and I'm really, really happy with it. And I feel like I can really make a contribution,
That's
awesome.
Yeah, that's terrific. And what a great feeling too, that you just described when, you find something that has so much meaning and value to you. I mean, we can all find value and joy to the day to day, at least the 3 things like we talked about, right? But there's something about, when you put that conscious effort into it and it's giving you that return on investment, so to speak, and that return of investment of your time and your energy and your passion and your love for it, it's indescribable. It's hard to find. And I don't know if everyone's ever going to find that, but when you do, you got to cherish it and run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And it is that, somebody said to me, I left California years ago and I really didn't want to leave California. I just moved back this year. And I remember him saying to me, you're on a ride, you're going on a ride, it's going to come full circle. And I say California, but I feel like that's more of just kind of the analogy for life. When sometimes it's like, all right, I don't necessarily know where it's going to end up, but I have a vision and I have a next step. And I think that you can kind of get anywhere. So I remember him saying that to me and I ended up kind of finally coming full circle. And I was like, oh, he was right. He was right. I didn't believe him. And I was like stressed about it. And I went kicking and screaming the whole way. Surrender, like I said, has not been an easy thing for me in my life. So I definitely fought, but I feel like it led me around. And some of the things that I have been, most frustrated that happened to me ended up being the things that led me to what I've loved the most. Do you guys have you had experiences like that as well?
I mean, yeah, I taught the listeners definitely know about this, but I always like to share it with, a fresh conversation. And I had a opiate addiction for like a good 12 years. I was on it and, thinking it helped me excel. So I had the wrong mentality. And then when I finally admitted to this, it took me 5 years to get off of it. And like, there's some pretty disappointing stories in that whole problem, right? And but what I gained from that and the appreciation that I have, like having money to always get gas and get food, because that used to be a thing, like where you'd be like, can I get food? Like, how am I going to eat this week? Or like, you're eating the cheapest shit, right? Like, it's disgusting. And to like be able to buy nice things for myself, like a pair of shoes if I want some shoes, or like, whatever it is, just having that lifestyle after not having that lifestyle for so long. Like, I had my car repoed, like I didn't have a car for a while. Like I was in a rough spot. Like I didn't treat myself well. And but just like anything, I was consistently bad. Okay. So this is the lesson I'm going to take out of this, is I was consistently bad all the time and consistently making the wrong choices. And it took a lot of time to get to my lowest of low, right? Like I had to be consistently bad though, to get to that low. And then it was hard to change, but now I'm consistently being good, and I'm starting to reap the benefits. So you're going to be consistent regardless in life in some area, but it's what is going to come from that, because everything takes time. Everything takes time, and it all takes energy. And so I only got really, really bad because that was like my main priority. I was putting that above a lot of things. And so now I have different priorities, and that's for me. Kev, what's yours?
I think it's, like you said, it's going to be different for everybody, and everyone's going to interpret it differently. And I think one of the things that I like to remind myself of as I get older, into my mid-30s now, is that you find out in life what you want by finding out what you don't want. And that's the old cliche saying of you live and learn, right? Or, you're in the trenches taking grenades, as I like to say. And I think that those things are also crucial, though. A lot of people that I talk to that are extremely successful have failed at some point. And I feel like all of us can relate to that to some varying degree or another. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly what that looks like for most people, because it's going to be very different. It's not going to share the same episode of the series, so to speak. But for me, it's really just been finding what works by finding out what doesn't work, and sticking to the things that give me motivation, energy, and being here on Wednesday nights is what works for me. I feel like this is, I found podcasting for me is like therapy, something that I've always needed. Therapy. I need to express myself. Otherwise, I don't know what to do with myself, and I get very weird. Arthur can attest to this. So long story short, I love talking to people, love meeting people. And I feel like podcasting for me has rooted myself into, this is what I'm supposed to do, as layman terms as I can put it. Right. Yeah. So to circle all that back, this is it for me. This is kind of the candle that got lit. It gives me that energy.
Me too, brother. I'm dying on this hill with you, man. And you talked about that moment where you felt it, like in your heart, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I'm home, like that whole feeling in a professional career. And when we were recording another podcast here that we were producing, like I had a beautiful moment like that, where like I was so happy that I had like tears of joy were and I had to like hold it together. I'm like, but it was like that moment. And it's just great when all your accumulation of work like starts coming together, because we want to be a production company. Like we love doing the podcast. We're going to continue doing it, but we want to help other people and build this network and build something bigger than us. And being a part of that is just, when you're part of something bigger than yourself, like raising kids, like building it, making a business, it brings more meaning into your life. And I encourage everybody to challenge yourself to try to do something that is bigger than yourself. And it's going to be stressful and it's going to be challenges, but what you get from that is monumental.
Yeah. You got to show up. Like you throw your hat over the fence. Have you guys heard that expression, or do I just say that all the time and nobody?
Throw your hat in the ring?
Like throw your hat over the fence?
Oh, I thought you said throw your hat in the ring.
No,
that makes sense.
Well, it's probably the same. I don't know. Throw the I say this all the time, and then it dawned on me later. I was like, I don't think anybody knows what I'm talking about.
Throw your hat over the fence?
You throw your hat over the fence, so then you have to climb over the fence to get it. Like if there's a fence too tall to get over, you have to throw your hat over.
Okay.
Because then you have to get over to the other side. So I always said, like, I'm gonna throw my hat over the fence, so that way I know that I have to somehow figure a way to go get my hat.
Well, because you love your hats.
Well, and it's yeah, and even like metaphorically speaking, because what I just pictured in my mind as you said that is throwing my hat over the fence is an extreme commitment, right? So whether that's a financial commitment, whether that's a weekly, daily commitment, I'm throwing it over the fence. Now I got to go get it, right? I'm not leaving that hat behind. I'm here. I'm committed. That's how I picture that, and I like that. I'm going to adopt it.
Evidently, you have to explain it a little bit more, yeah, because.
No, but the explanation, like I'm feeling something over here, like this energy from that explanation and analogy.
I'm throwing my hat over the fence, Andrea. It's going over the fence.
Over the fence. That's awesome. I love that. What was the moment that you guys had when you decided to do this podcast? Like, what happened? Was it a long time that you were talking about it, or was it just like one night where you had a few beers and you were like, no, let's do it, and then you got up the next day and did it?
Well, first of all, I love the fact that you're asking us questions, because it almost feels like now we're on your show, and I love that. I think that's terrific.
It is her show tonight.
Yeah, it's your show. You're the star.
She's the star.
She's the host now. And thanks for asking some very genuine questions. I like that. It means a lot. And it's tough to pinpoint like when was like we're going to do this. And I'll let Art weigh on this too, because I think we're going to have two different approaches to it. I mean, I fell in love, like I was just saying, 5 minutes ago, with the idea that I can be myself, and if it can help people relate, meet people, whatever the networking idea, I just love the idea of podcasting.
Yeah.
I've been in sales a long time. I love good conversation, talking to people like yourself. And Art and I have always had great conversations. We've been really good friends for over 12 years. And this idea came about that, hey, let's just start a podcast, right? Because that's the thing to do. That's the trendy thing. And in 2019, when we decided to pull the plug, this was at a time where podcasting was really blowing up, right? So we were stepping into very muddy waters in a very saturated market.
Super saturated.
But there was just something about the dynamic that Art and I had of the conversations that we had that seemed right to do podcasting. But I mean, your perspective might be different.
We used to drink until like 3 a.m. and this is risky business. This could happen at any day. But like, yeah, we just hang out, talk, we would just shoot the shit. And that would happen all the time. That's how we became really good friends. And so both of us want to be entertainers. He used to record videos of me freestyling and all this stuff. And that's out there on like a kind of a dormant YouTube channel, but it's there. And, so we were always we had that creative gene, and that's what, that's something that makes me feel full. It makes me feel happy. Like I'm complete, like creating something and that, having that outlet of doing something like that. And so we both had this, we both did music. He was in a band. I did my rap thing a little bit. And, it was just kind of meant to be. And then Kevin had the idea. I'll give him credit for that. He had the idea, and he was kind of in my ear about it for, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so, a quarter of a year. And then eventually we like did the first episode on a cell phone. We recorded it, didn't even have the name yet. And, then we started investing in ourselves though, because like, we're in DTC in Denver now, which is decent, I'll say it's nice. And, but it took time. Like we committed every single week, relentless commitment every single week, even if I'm arguing with my ex-girlfriends or whatever is going on, like, because I'm going to do this, like, but we still showed up. And that's what it takes to like really grow anything, is facing adversity, moving forward through problems. Like we've had episodes that we've recorded and then it didn't take, and then we just have to re-record it. Like that's happened a couple times. Like
major test.
I mean,
yeah,
it's great. It can be a great opportunity too. Like they say, our subconscious does the work on that stuff. So you come back sometimes when you have to redo something and it's even better, but still
that's
really
true.
frustrating.
So many times that's happened though. It really has. I mean, going back to that adapting and overcoming, like it's so, for me, electronics frustrate the hell out of me when things don't work right. I have the tendency to want to throw things. That's my natural reaction. Now I'm doing better at holding on to them and maybe crushing them. We're making progress here is the point.
But
socks. It is.
Tell my daughter she should go in and just throw her socks around the room, like when she gets
socks.
angry.
That's good. Something that's less fragile. Yes.
Fragile.
Something much less fragile. That's always gonna be the name of the game. But you're right. It's look, relentless consistency.
Yeah.
Relentless.
It's what it is, right? That's what it is.
I think I should say that it's future.com and Greg. Greg is my coach at future.com. They came up with relentless consistency.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Greg, future.com.
Yeah, let's make sure to get the quote in there.
Yeah. I mean, credit where credit is due. And that's being humble. All right. Like that's one thing that I'll be honest about right now. I don't know if I've opened up about this, but you know, seeing success from a project like this, where it's viewed by, you know, a good chunk of people, like it could be easy to like have that get into your head a little bit. And like, I feel like being humble has been something that is a constant reminder, because you know, at the end of the day, like every single human being on this planet could be my peer. Like, so like, that's just where I want to continue to come from. And I feel like that's what's been good for Kevin and I, because we both have kept our roots and always been ourselves.
Yeah.
And just being humble, you know, and we're so like, you look like you're having a good time. And that means a lot to us, that you can come on, shoot the shit, like say some things that are on your brain and enjoy your time. Like, it's important.
Yeah. I feel like you guys have such a good dynamic with each other. Like I said, I listened to a lot of your podcasts, you know, over the last week or so. And I was like, oh, they're just so great at just talking to people. Like people just show up and they have a conversation and you want to listen to it. So good job, guys.
Thank you. That means a lot. That's a very nice compliment.
And I keep this train rolling.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you know, you tune into our stuff, of course, and more importantly, I'm excited that you're on our show tonight, because you have great energy and doing some amazing things. I like your perspectives. You know, single mom, military spouse. You know, you've done a lot of amazing things, and I think it's just great to sit down and learn about some of this stuff and see different perspectives and respect the hustle and the great things that you have going on right now.
Thanks for having me here. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. It's been fun. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, highlighting all the stuff. I mean, just in this conversation alone has been pretty powerful, and it's important to talk about these things and have real conversations with people. It's kind of becoming a lost art. You know, everyone wants to talk and text, and you know, they want to text and email. So I guess that's my challenge for this week is let's pick up the phone, and instead of texting that person, just let's have a 5-minute phone call. Like,
I like it.
You can accomplish 20 minutes of texting and a 5-minute phone call easy. And I think that's a good challenge. Let's reconnect with people. You know, the pandemic has, you know, given us this weird mentality of isolation. And, you know, if we can't physically be with people, I understand that. But like, let's still be there and hear each other, because you can't hear voice inflections or any of that sort of stuff when you are texting. Like it's not there. So that's my challenge this week. And,
I like that.
Let's connect with each other.
I feel like you've been hanging out with Shawn, because he yells at me for that all the time. He's like, did you like I texted my dad. He's like, no, pick up the phone and call. And he has a family Zoom call that he does every week, that he gets once a month, but he gets all of his family onto a Zoom and they sit there and spend an hour just together from wherever they are in the world. It's good stuff. I'm going to take it on this week. I'm taking your challenge on.
It's a good challenge.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I like it. And one of the things we like to ask around here, you've probably seen, you know, watching our show, is, you know, if you could offer one piece of advice that could better humanity tomorrow, and that's, you know, that's asking a lot. I can understand a lot of people are going to perceive that differently, but just one simple piece of advice that could help better humanity tomorrow, what do you think that would be?
The first thing that comes to my mind, that probably isn't what I would come up with if I thought about it for a long time, is, you know what? It's not that serious. Like, we're all going to die, and then the earth is going to go crashing into the sun. So take a deep breath, be a kind person, and just get over yourself a little bit. It's okay. It's all okay.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, we don't even need to say anything after that. Simple, to the point,
direct, decisive, and to the point. It's something that we need, you know, just underline it, boom, italicized, bold, 72 font. That's it. That's all it needs to be.
72 font.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I do other fonts than Times New Roman. I don't know, but that's good advice. It really is, because once you stop taking things so seriously, then you can start enjoying things more. And
exactly,
we could all enjoy. Like, how is there too much enjoying? Like, as long as it's good, wholesome fun, right?
Yeah. You know? And what are we stopping ourselves from because we don't want to feel the fear involved, or because we're taking it so seriously? Like, what are we not allowing in our lives because we can't just relax and allow it, you know, back into the surrender? But
well, we both appreciate you here for sure. Any links for your projects that you're working on, company, all that, we can leave all that
in the show notes.
And what an epic person. I mean, you're creating an impact in the world. You're helping raising people that I know are going to also have this kind of energy that you got. And like, I just, keep going, cause it's so awesome to talk to somebody like you that is making big changes, is putting a magnifying glass to points that, mean something and matter. And man, I mean, I'm so happy that Shawn introduced us and that we had the opportunity to chat.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you coming on, talking with us, and giving some good perspectives, and even turning the page on us a little bit and asking us some questions on our show. That's not something that guests do very often. So I definitely tip my hat to you for doing that. That's pretty cool. You have a really great perspective on things, and I like what you're doing. And one thing, once you're in the DCPC community here, just like when you're with Shawn Antonio, there's really no getting out. So repeat guest, we'd love to have you back on. And if you're ever in Denver, Colorado, you got to come in studio, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you got to keep that in mind for sure. But yeah, most importantly, any show notes that, or any links or important things that we need to include in the show notes down below, we can talk about that off air as well. But we want to make sure that we capture everything we can for you, for all of our viewers, listeners, whatever. Any social media plugs or anything they want to put in last minute here?
Can I just do websites? Is that
perfect?
Yeah. The film that I work in the Pax River is Pax River Film. I'm sorry, paxriver.film, not .com.film, paxriver.film. And then my company is ameliamedia.agency, also not .com.
Awesome.
Tremendous. And we'll include those clickable links down below, of course, as well. So we'll make that really easy for the great viewers that we have.
Yeah. Thank you so much, valued viewers. We're going to keep coming at you with relentless consistency, and life is to be lived. Love living. It was such a great time chatting with you, Kevin. I love hanging out with you too, man.
Much love, brother.
Everybody out there, be good to yourself.
You deserve it.